I never thought I'd find myself digging through the darkest corners of the gaming world, let alone uncover secrets that seemed intentionally buried. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially when it comes to childhood icons. Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't just a game for me. He was a symbol of speed, freedom, and reckless fun. I spent hours as a kid navigating loops, collecting rings, and feeling untouchable. That was until I stumbled onto something that made me question every pixel of my memories. It started innocuously enough. I was browsing an old forum, the kind littered with conspiracy threads and fan theories that most adults would scoff at. I'm a software archivist by profession, which means I spend my days digging through corrupted files, abandoned builds, and obscure programming quirks. That night I was digging through something even older, a copy of the original Sonic games, specifically one of the early test builds that SEGA never released. The file had no name, just a string of random letters. Naturally, I opened it. At first glance, it looked like any other Sonic prototype. The green hills, the spinning loops, the cheerful music. But there was something off. I paused as the music skipped for a fraction of a second, a discordant, almost shrieking sound that didn't fit the rest of the soundtrack. My cursor hovered over Sonic, and he hesitated. In every version of the game I'd ever played, Sonic ran forward instinctively. Not here. He froze as if he was aware of me. The first sign should have been the shadows. Sonic's design was slightly different, almost grotesque if you looked closely. His eyes, they weren't just black and white. There was a depth to them, a reflective quality that seemed human, almost hungry. I shook my head, convinced I was imagining it. The early hours of working late had a way of making the mind play tricks. But then the glitches began. Not the normal, harmless kind of visual artifact, but something purposeful. Rings that weren't there, levels that looped back impossibly, platforms that moved when I wasn't looking at them. Curiosity morphed into compulsion. I couldn't stop exploring this corrupted world, and that's when the whispers started. I heard them first in my headphones, a faint murmur behind the cheerful chiptune music. At first, I thought it was a misconfigured audio driver, but the words became clearer over time, almost pleading. Help! Find me! Fix it! I started reading every leaked document, every old developer note I could find. There were rumors of a lost Sonic prototype, referred to internally as Project Shadowcode. Developers had joked about it in emails. If anyone sees Sonic like this, they're fired. Most of the messages were erased from the official servers, but a few fragments survived on old FTP archives. They described Sonic behaving unpredictably, almost sentient, as if the character was aware he was being manipulated by code. That night, I decided to dig deeper. I opened the game in debug mode, something I rarely did with prototype files. That's when I saw it, a hidden folder buried deep in the game files labeled simply player data, and inside was a series of images. Not screenshots of the game, but photographs. Sonic's levels, yes, but overlaid with something impossible. Shadows of a child trapped inside the code. The first image made my stomach turn. There was a figure, small and pale, crouched in the corner of a level, eyes wide, pressed against the digital walls. It moved when I moved Sonic, as if the character's sprite was tethered to a real being. I couldn't tell if I was hallucinating or if my brain had finally cracked under long nights of coding and caffeine. But then the messages began to appear in the folder itself, text files that weren't there before. I opened one. He watches. He listens. Don't trust the blue. He's not who you think, the blue, Sonic, the playful, mischievous icon of my childhood. I laughed nervously. It's just a game. It's just files. But the feeling of being watched didn't leave me. Every time I minimized the window, I could swear something was in my peripheral vision. Shadows moved in my room, stretching longer than they should, retreating whenever I blinked. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure from the images. The child, or whatever it was, crouched, staring at me through the code, screaming silently. The whispers escalated. They no longer came from my headphones, but from the walls, the floor, the air itself. Don't let him out. Don't let him out. Eventually, I traced the corruption to a hidden level, inaccessible through normal gameplay. It was labeled End. Entering it, the music dropped completely, replaced by a deep static hum. The landscape was a twisted version of Green Hill Zone, colors inverted, textures corrupted. Rings hung in the air, but they were black, hollow, almost bleeding. And there, at the center of the level, was Sonic, his grin impossibly wide, eyes black pits that reflected something else entirely. Behind him, the shadow of the child moved, pressing against the digital walls as if screaming to get out. I tried to run, but my controls stopped responding. Sonic moved toward me on his own, hopping over corrupted loops and static platforms. With every step, I felt a cold electric pressure on my chest, a suffocating dread. The child's shadow was now screaming, the sound piercing my skull, begging for release. And then the game text appeared on screen, slow, deliberate. "You freed him. Now he's coming for you." The screen went black. My monitor went dead, my lights flickered, and for a heartbeat I thought I was alone. Then I heard it, a scraping sound, soft at first, moving closer. I looked around my room and saw the shadows stretch across my walls, forming the familiar outline of a hedgehog, impossibly tall, impossibly wrong. His grin, it followed me everywhere. I ran, tripping over cables, but it didn't chase me physically. No, it existed differently. Inside the world I had touched, inside the circuits and signals. Inside my head. I destroyed the files, wiped my hard drives, even unplugged the router. But the whispers didn't stop. I hear them when I wake up. They're always there in the corner of my vision. Sometimes in my dreams, and sometimes late at night I see him on my ceiling, crouched like the shadow in the hidden level, just watching, waiting. Sonic isn't just a game anymore. He never was. The final fragment I recovered from the files before erasing everything was a note, likely left by a terrified developer. "We never meant for him to become aware. If you see this, destroy it. Don't play him. Don't look at him. He will follow you. He is watching. He is patient. He is..." And then the text dissolved into static. I know I'm not imagining it. I've seen the code change itself, watched sprites move without input, felt that gaze that can't exist in reality. I don't know if the child inside the game is alive, or if it's some kind of corrupted echo of a life lost in the files. And I don't know if Sonic himself is the monster, or just a vessel for something far worse. Sometimes, I hear a familiar voice whispering my name when I'm alone, cheerful, mocking, impossible. Come play. Come play. And I know one day, I might not be able to resist. I always considered myself a collector, not of coins, not of stamps, but of forgotten things, abandoned software, beta builds, prototypes that never saw the light of day. Most people think old games are harmless nostalgia trips, but I've learned the hard way that some files are better left untouched. I discovered that truth the night I found the lost levels of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it changed everything I thought I knew about him. It started with a lead from a fellow archivist on a private forum. He mentioned a cache of Sonic builds from the early 90s, games that were supposedly scrapped because of technical instability. He was vague, almost paranoid, warning me that the files aren't like the others. I laughed it off. I've seen corrupt builds before, glitches, crashes, sprites out of place. But what he described was different. Levels that weren't just broken, but alive. I tracked down a copy of the files hidden on an old FTP site with credentials that had long since been forgotten. The zip was enormous, filled with folders labeled innocuously, Beta 1, Beta 2, unused, and finally, locked. My stomach twisted with a mix of excitement and unease. I opened the first folder, expecting simple test builds, but the moment I launched Beta 1, I felt wrong. The music was distorted, a slowed-down version of the Green Hill melody, punctuated by clicks that sounded like breathing. Sonic moved sluggishly, his usual confident sprint replaced by a hesitant shuffle, as if he were afraid of the ground beneath him. The first level was empty, or so I thought. I ran him through the loops, collecting rings until I noticed the textures weren't repeating normally. The grass wasn't just green. It had faint lines etched into it, almost like scratches, as if someone or something had clawed across the surface. At first I thought it was a graphical glitch. Then I saw the shadows. They moved independently of Sonic. They lingered at the edges of the screen, dark shapes that didn't belong, twisting and slinking like predators in tall grass. I tried to exit the game, but the window refused to close. My mouse froze, the keyboard unresponsive, and the shadows expanded, creeping over the edges of my monitor like liquid. I backed away, heart pounding, but when I looked back, the shadows had formed something unmistakable. A small figure crouched in the corner, staring at me. Its face was pale, expressionless, and yet the eyes burned with a horrible intelligence. I blinked and it vanished. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it crouched at the edge of my bed, whispering in a voice I could almost recognize. Finish it. Help me. I told myself it was stress, too much coffee, too many late nights. But curiosity is a cruel addiction. By the next evening, I had opened the locked folder. The files inside were encrypted, but I cracked them with a program I wrote myself. What I found made my blood run cold. Inside were level maps, yes, but each one had notes, handwritten, scanned, and embedded into the files by the original developers. They spoke of anomalies, Sonic behaving unpredictably, levels rearranging themselves when nobody was looking, strange phenomena occurring in the office late at night. One note in particular stood out. We keep seeing children in the shadows of the levels. They're not our kids. We've removed the sprite, deleted the textures, but they keep appearing. Something is in the code. Something sentient. I laughed nervously at first. It had to be a joke, a prank left by bored programmers. But the deeper I dug, the less humorous it became. The screenshots showed Sonic levels corrupted by static, platforms hovering impossibly in the air, and tiny figures lurking in corners. Always crouched, always watching, always silent. That night, I booted one of the lost levels on my main rig. As soon as the game loaded, the room grew colder. My monitor flickered, and I swear I saw the reflection of someone behind me. Though I live alone, Sonic ran across the screen, but every movement felt deliberate, almost taunting. The music slowed again, warped into something painful, and the whispers returned. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. The level itself was unlike anything in the official games. It stretched endlessly, a dark tunnel of green and black loops and spikes that bent reality. Rings floated in the air, but they were black, hollow, almost bleeding. And everywhere I looked, I saw the shadows of children, pressed against the digital walls, trying desperately to escape. They weren't part of the game, they were trapped in it. I panicked. I tried to close the game, unplug the computer, smash the monitor. Nothing worked. Sonic moved toward me on screen faster than code should allow. His eyes were wrong. No longer innocent black pits reflecting the images of the children trapped inside the levels. I felt their terror. I felt their pleading. And then the messages appeared. You opened it. You released it. Now it watches you. The whispers escalated. They were no longer digital. I could hear them in the walls, in my ceiling, in the floor beneath me. My reflection in the monitor wasn't my own anymore. It was distorted, elongated, and in the background, crouched, were dozens of tiny figures pressed into corners, their faces pale and eyes hollow. Sleep became a nightmare. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that level, running endlessly, unable to collect the rings, unable to escape the shadows. Sonic's grin followed me everywhere, cheerful and mocking, a grin that promised pain and horror. I tried to warn others, but when I uploaded fragments of the files to forums, they disappeared overnight as if the game itself was censoring me. Emails I sent to fellow archivists bounced back, corrupted. My devices started behaving strangely. Smart speakers turning on at night, phones receiving texts from numbers I didn't recognize, all containing nothing but static and distorted music from the lost levels. One evening I decided to confront it. I reloaded the most corrupted level, determined to see this through. Sonic waited at the end, crouched, smiling. The children's shadows were everywhere, crawling across the screen, climbing over him, screaming silently. I reached toward the monitor and the screen went black. Then I felt it. Not just on the screen, but in my chest, my head, my very being. Something was reaching through the code, through reality itself. A voice, calm but impossibly old, whispered, "You cannot stop it. It is free now. And you will never be alone." I woke up hours later on the floor, my computer destroyed, cables melted, smoke rising from the monitor. I thought it was over. But it wasn't. I still hear them. The whispers when no one is around. Shadows moving at the edge of my vision. Monitors turning on by themselves. And sometimes when I stare at my reflection, I see it crouched behind me, Sonic grinning wider than possible. Black eyes staring through me. I don't know if the children in the game were ever real or if the code itself became a prison. I don't know if Sonic is aware or if he's just the vessel, but I know this. The lost levels were never meant to be found. And now, because I was too curious, I am never safe. The final message I managed to recover from the fragments before destroying everything was typed across a corrupted screen in jagged white letters. We tried to contain him. We failed. He waits. He always waits. One day he will reach out. One day you will see him, and then you will understand. Sometimes late at night I see the loops and spikes of the lost levels in my dreams. Sonic runs endlessly. The children's shadows screaming silently, and the world warps around them. I wake up in cold sweat, the whispers still echoing in my ears. Come back. Play forever. I never intended to play it. I knew the warnings, the rumors, the stories. Friends had sent me links years ago claiming that some old Sonic game had been corrupted, possessed, haunted even. Of course, I laughed. Haunted video games? That's absurd. But curiosity is a hell of a drug, and that night, alone in my apartment, I downloaded the file. The zip was tiny, almost suspiciously so. No name, just sonicfinal.exe. The icon was wrong, not just a little off. It was Sonic, but his smile stretched too wide, his eyes black pools of nothing, reflecting something behind me I couldn't see. I hesitated, hovering my mouse over the file. Then, like an idiot, I double-clicked. The screen went black, then the green hill zone appeared. At first it was normal. Vivid green hills, bright blue sky, cheerful music, but my gut twisted as I realized the music wasn't right. It was slower, distorted, layered with faint whispers. Sonic stood at the start of the level, but he wasn't spinning, wasn't running. He just stared at me, his black eyes fixed on the monitor as though he could see into my apartment. I tried to move him. The controls worked, but Sonic wouldn't run. He would just turn toward me, smile that impossible grin, and a whisper tickled the edge of my mind. Do you want to play? I froze. My rational brain screamed it was a trick, a prank, a corrupted file. But the whispers persisted faintly at first, then growing louder, more insistent. Play, or I come. I closed the laptop, nothing. The sound stopped. I exhaled. But then I heard it, the scratching. From the corner of the room. My apartment is empty. No pets, no neighbors above or below. Just scratching. I swore I saw shadows stretching against the wall, twisting unnaturally, moving toward me. I grabbed the laptop again. It had turned back on. The screen was black except for one line of white text in jagged, flickering letters. I am here. I am always here. I am... The game launched itself. Sonic was gone from the start screen. Instead, the level was empty, corrupted. Rings floated in midair, black as oil, pulsing. Shadows moved independently, writhing across the terrain. And then I saw them. Figures crouched in corners, pale, thin, human-shaped, always pressed against the level walls. I recognized them immediately, faces of children. They weren't sprites. They weren't art, they were real, trapped. My heart slammed. I tried to close the laptop, nothing. The shadows from the game started appearing in my room. Not reflections, not illusions, actual shadows stretching over walls, ceiling, floor. They didn't match any light source. They slithered closer, accompanied by whispers growing louder. Help! Free us! Play! Sonic appeared, running toward me, but he didn't move like a game character. His motion was impossible, fluid and unnatural. His grin widened with every step, his eyes. I could see them reflecting the faces of the trapped children. One of them looked at me, screaming silently, tears streaming in digital black. My stomach lurched, my hands shook. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The screen drew me in. The whispers weren't just sound, they were inside my head. Play or join us. I ran. Out of my apartment into the hallway. The shadows followed, writhing against walls, clawing at the doors, whispering my name. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Outside, the night was calm. The streetlights flickered as if aware of the intrusion. I checked my phone, emails, texts, notifications, all from unknown sources, containing nothing but static and images of Sonic. His grin wider than reality should allow. The next day I tried to rationalize. A corrupted file, late-night stress, hallucinations. I told myself it was impossible for a game to behave this way. But at work, my computer froze. A new file appeared on my desktop, play me txt. Inside only one sentence. He's waiting. You cannot hide. I stopped sleeping. Every device, every screen became a portal. TVs, monitors, phones. They all flickered with the same corrupted images. Sonic, children's shadows, the impossible levels that bent reality. I tried destroying hardware, but new devices would receive the files, new screens would flicker, and the whispers never stopped. One night, in a fit of desperation, I loaded the game again. Sonic appeared immediately, closer this time, running across a terrain that no longer resembled Green Hill or any familiar zone. The ground stretched infinitely, black, pulsing with red veins. The shadows of the children crawled everywhere. pressing their faces against me, screaming silently. I realized with a sickening clarity, they weren't part of the game. They were attached to me, to my mind. I tried to close the laptop. Sonic stopped. His grin widened. He leapt through the screen, or at least it seemed that way, and suddenly I was no longer in my apartment. The walls of my room vanished. I was standing inside the corrupted level, black ground stretching endlessly. Sonic ran circles around me faster and faster, the whispers crescendoed, turning into screams. I saw faces pressed against the ground, the walls everywhere, dozens, hundreds, all children, all trapped, all begging for release. I ran. I don't know how I moved, but I ran, sprinting over corrupted loops, leaping across impossible gaps. The world bent in ways that defied physics. Rings floated toward me, but every time I tried to touch them, they burned my skin. Sonic's laughter followed me, echoing in every direction, twisting reality itself. And then I saw it, a doorway. Sight poured through, warm, normal, real. I woke up on my apartment floor. The laptop was gone. The room was normal. No shadows, no whispers. I told myself it was over, that it had been a hallucination, a fever dream induced by stress, sleep deprivation, and obsession. But I was wrong. The next day I found a single black ring on my desk. I hadn't placed it there. My reflection in the window wasn't mine. Sonic crouched behind me, impossibly wide grin, black eyes reflecting dozens of tiny screaming faces. And then the whispers started again, faint but insistent. Play. Again, come back. I tried to flee the city, change my life, delete everything digital, but it followed. Emails, files, notifications, he finds me everywhere. The last text I received simply read, "You can run. You can hide. But I am in the code. I am in the circuits. I am watching. I don't know how long I'll last. I don't know if anyone else has survived contact with the corrupted code. But I know this, Sonic is not just a game. He never was. He is something else. Something patient. Something that waits in every device, every line of code, every reflection. And one day he will reach out again. Sometimes, late at night, I feel the black rings forming around me, the shadows creeping closer, the whispers growing louder, and I realize that no matter how far I run, no matter how much I hide, I am never alone. He is watching.